The withered, gray old man named the year 2025 has disintegrated into dust and blown away in the wind, but not before turning the hourglass over to the suckling babe called 2026, so ripe with life it hasn't even dirtied its diaper. And I, for one, am ready to watch that baby rapidly age and grow so that month by month we can observe the hideous deformation that occurs during the human lifespan. But today we consider the doddering codger 2025 that lay dead before us. My name is Claude Waldrop, and this is the Late List Podcast. This is a Fireside chat episode, an episode apart from the main series I'm working on about Something Weird video. These episodes will be more frequent and more casual, and I'm sure much shorter than the Something Weird episodes. This is the 2025 Bagged and Tagged episodes. I don't, but I do, keep up with current events. They're bad, and knowing about them makes me a worse person. I keep up with movies because I like to escape current events. I'm a pretty simple dolt that way. So just what did I watch in 2025 that helped distract and amuse me? As always, there were instant favorites, total flops, and everything in between. Of course, I didn't see everything, and what I'll be discussing isn't everything I've seen. But let's start with the newer movies.
I want to know something. I want to know one thing when this is all said and done. What is your name? I need to know your name.
My name is Comrade Josh.
Comrade Josh. Well, get a better name, Comrade Josh. That's a fucking ridiculous name for a revolutionary, first off. Second off, I want to know your coordinates. I want to know your location right now. What is it?
I'm in a secure location somewhere between the stolen land of the Wabanaki and the stolen land of the Chumash.
You're fucking intolerable, man.
For a few years, we've had a trend in popular cinema where consciousness could be partitioned off from physical reality. The idealized self traveling through a multiverse, body swapping, time loops, souls on a flash drive, doppelgangers, non-player characters, and clones. Movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once, Barbie the Substance, Us and Get Out, Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse, or many of the Marvel movies seem to be at least partly examining the questions that arise when we live our lives online. While these kind of movies were still popular in 2025, this feels like the year that wave crashed and left us on the shore. We're very officially in the post-2020 cinema era. So many movies are about how loneliness and isolation warp us and tear us apart, or how hard it is to find togetherness. The world got weird in 2016, but it really cracked in 2020. You probably had to finally unfollow your ex's fine-ass yoga instructor once she started giving her kids horse dewormer instead of the COVID vaccine. Or maybe you thought it was kind of cool when your cousin's best friend put truck nuts and coal rollers on his jacked-up F-150 and posted mud bogging videos. But you finally had to draw the line when he joined the Proud Boys. Now we're 5 years down the line, and you kind of miss all those folks you left behind, and you don't get together with your friends as much. Because you just don't. You got out of the habit, and you started some new habit. And if this isn't how your last decade or so felt, then you know someone that went through it. And filmmakers from the underground to the blockbusters are finally catching up with these stories and processing them in some interesting ways. The most obvious example of this trend is Ari Aster's Eddington, a dark comedy about a small town dealing with COVID during the height of the 2020 lockdown. It tries to approach that time period with a detached we're making fun of everybody style of humor that falls flat because they forgot to actually be funny. Maybe the times are just too dark for dark comedy, but even the dramatic parts felt convoluted and forced. This ends in a gruesome shootout that seems to be making visual references to first-person shooter video games, but without anyone to root for, where's the suspense? Still, there's something to be said for attempting to portray the heated, confused moment of the lockdown, an event many of us experienced online. A better movie about a small town in the grip of disaster was Meat Machine from the hardest working man in the underground, director Jeffrey Garcia. Lithuania has gotten a hold of a nuclear bomb and they're dropping it on Reidsville, Texas, because Reidsville sucks balls. The President of the U.S., played by folk artist George Zupp, is a total dipshit, and all of his top aides are working around the clock on the dumbest side quests to prevent the catastrophe. The people of Reidsville are totally unaware and carry on their lives, abusing each other and themselves to a point where you find yourself agreeing with the Lithuanians. I've watched a lot of newer, low to no budget movies that use the shot on video look, and most of the time it's used as a cover because the filmmakers aren't trying very hard. Hey, it's SOV, what do you expect? But Meat Machine is epic in its scope. It's like a 70s disaster movie, but no one knows they're in danger. Everyone's huffing flea powder, and no one's coming to the rescue. There's a huge cast with a ton of interconnected storylines, a musical number, tons of homemade special effects, buckets of laughs, and gallons of shit, puke, and pus. Underneath the disgusting layers of phlegm, there's a sensitivity. Characters that are in a losing battle with the horrors of the world. Lines like, "Do you know how many loads I had to swallow to pay for this hotel room?" are undeniably caring.
Yeah, you see this shit, bitch? Yeah, look at that nice little wet burrito pussy. You like that fucking shit, don't you? Yeah, bitch. Start fucking eating this fucking shit now.
As a contrast to small-town isolation, a few films dealt with community solidarity. Ephus is a baseball movie where the conflict turns from who will win the game to can games be played just for the sake of playing them in an ever-changing world. It's the last game being played on a small-town rec league baseball field before it's demolished to make way for a new school. Neither team is favored in this story. There's no underdog, no heroes, no villains. The game has no stakes. Through the innings, the external motivations and organizing agents begin to peel away. One coach has to leave for a family obligation. Fans go home. The umpires give up. Even the lights for the field won't come on as the sun goes down. All that's left are the players who want to play the game, and they do what it takes to see it through. There are so few times in life when we know something is really over and we need to hold it as tight as we can. I don't like phony nostalgia, and this starts out with all the old stuff that's truly meaningless, like vintage cars and fake ads for made-up local restaurants. But just like baseball, Ephus slowly takes over your attention to the point that you're willing to watch it in the dark. Who needs the fireworks? One of my favorite community solidarity movies of the year was Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another, where a group of leftist radical terrorists are forced into a corner by perversions of institutional force. The structure of this group is diverse and non-hierarchical, with built-in safeguards to allow it to continue when members are inevitably flipped or taken out. Contrast this with the conservative elites that are willing to use violence against their own to preserve their perceived integrity. But flipping on your friends and family isn't always an option, as we learned in Maxwell Nelevensky's and Carl Fry's Rats, another Texas-based underground laugh riot. Raphael is caught with a nickel bag by the overzealous and violent Officer Williams, who wants him to turn informant on his drug-dealing cousin Mateo, who she accuses of selling nuclear warheads to Osama bin Laden. In the course of her investigation, Officer Williams tries to enlist a number of people to turn rat, while totally missing the obvious crimes happening all around her.
Steve Irwin, man. Such a tragedy. Such a fine-ass daughter, though, too, dog. I would kill to hit that. Premeditated murder. Criminal offenses.
Right. Steve Irwin.
Hey, you ever seen a picture of her? My baby girl, Steve Irwin's fine-ass daughter and everything?
I have not.
Shit, check this out. Don't come.
Word.
Beautiful, right? Molto bene, bella.
Of course, the NPR branded male loneliness epidemic shows up in the films of 2025, best exemplified by the Tim Robinson star vehicle Friendship. Robinson's been grinding in the world of comedy TV for years, and he's tried to parlay the virality of his meme fame into mainstream respectability with this movie and the prestige TV show The Chair Company. The kids that were weaned on Fred Figglehorn on YouTube finally have their HBO comedy star. Friendship is, as you could guess, about how difficult it can be to hold together male friendships as an adult. Robinson plays a frothing madman against the effortlessly cool Paul Rudd. It's the overblown cringe comedy take on Martin and Lewis. But what about your real best friends? The folks that boost you up when things are their darkest. The real motherfuckers that'll spot you a few bucks for some Checkers drive-thru as long as you take 'em home after they get too drunk. One of them days is a down-and-out, day-in-the-life comedy like Friday, After Hours, or Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Keke Palmer and SZA play the adorable best friends that get scammed at every turn while trying to scrape up the rent before being evicted. While Palmer and SZA are a fun duo, they don't play up their differences the way a typical buddy comedy might. Instead, they allow their weirdo side characters to create all the comic tension. This movie has blood bank bloopers, big boners, bodacious booties, and a biscuit burglar. But Aziza Scott as the vengeful Bernice is a fucking one-woman riot.
Thank you. I don't know why y'all keep fucking with me.
An even darker examination of friendship can be found in the story of therapist Douglas Kelly as he gains the trust of imprisoned Nazi official Hermann Goering in the overwrought drama Nuremberg. While Kelly never becomes true friends with the monstrous Goering, he becomes dangerously close, and he learns that it takes little more than a network of casual contacts looking the other way to spread true evil. Russell Crowe as the Nazi military commander is a tastelessly bold casting choice, and in 2025 he's the closest thing we have to Oliver Reed, giving a nearly perfect performance that's lazily menacing, almost going too far into camp. This was written and directed by a Vanderbilt, as in the Vanderbilts. I'd never heard of James Vanderbilt, but he's been bopping around Weirdowood writing IP-related movies like one of the Spider-Mans and some Scream sequels and a couple of Sandlers. He also wrote and produced Fincher's Zodiac. His wiki page also says he owns the rights to The Slender Man. There's something strange about one of the richest and most powerful Gilded Age families owning a character that I assumed was an unownable folk creature of the internet. Hopefully Matt Fury will strike it rich when a Rockefeller tries to buy Pepe. It's no surprise Vanderbilt is the biggest problem with this because almost every other element is excellent. I noticed how tasteful the clothes and sets and stuff like that were. The performances from Michael Shannon, Crowe, and Richard E. Grant are all as engrossing as you'd expect, but this is pretty corny stuff. There's lots of predictable story beats and knowing glances stand in for actual meaning. It has a lack of emotional complexity in a story that desperately needed it. I also have to put some blame on Rami Malek, who plays this like he's in a 90s romantic comedy. There were moments when they'd cut to him in the courtroom, and I could have sworn he was about to whisper, "You can do it, buddy," to Goring. This Oscar bait kitsch is entertaining at times, but it was a hard pivot when they showed endless minutes of concentration camp footage. The consequences of years of isolation and loneliness have made dating in 2025 almost impossible, as though it weren't hard enough already. What seems remarkable about the 2025 romance films is their absence. Granted, I haven't been keeping up with the genre, but 2024 had high-profile movies like Challengers, Honora, Love Lies Bleeding, Baby Girl, We Live in Time, or even fucked up ones like Nosferatu or the Joker sequel no one watched. The films of 2025 seem to have been made by people whose Tinder profile is just pictures of them on the couch under blankets with a bio that reads, "I hate this app, but whatever, I guess this is what we do now." Celine Song's The Materialists is an incomprehensible rich boy versus poor boy movie that makes you feel bad for wanting to feel good. It reinforces impossible romantic standards while claiming to criticize them. We're to believe that Dakota Johnson and Chris Evans are the relatable characters, and that Pedro Pascal's character, who's as rich as a robber baron, couldn't get a date without surgical enhancement that made him a few inches taller. The most bizarre part to me was wondering if shin implants were real. Was this simply weird social commentary? Or has this trend actually taken hold among the ultra-wealthy? The world's gotten so bizarre that I could believe it. It's a shame this was so uneven because Song's debut, Past Lives, was nearly perfect. A film that delves into the dark side of dating much more effectively is Elric Kane's debut, The Dead Thing. It's about a girl who's been on the dating scene too long, and she finally connects with a man who's oh so easy to fall in love with. Of course he turns out to be some kind of Dybbuk or ghost or haint, but the crazy part is, it's such a dick desert out there that she barely cares. I worried this would be a lame 24 wannabe trauma snoozer, but it actually had sex scenes with nudity. This won't please the black shirt horror crowd because it's not exactly gripping or violent, or even all that weird, but it brushes up against the painfulness of trying to share yourself with others in a world that wants you to detach. This could have been just a thriller about a jealous ghost boyfriend, but thankfully it feels more like a campfire story or a creepypasta where the ghost is a sad figure trapped in a limbo that he's unaware of, like the vanishing hitchhiker stories that seem to appear all over the world in one form or another. The girl's decision to move forward in a relationship she knows is dangerous is the scariest part, because that's definitely some shit I'd do. Then there's Companion, which gets to the heart of loneliness and the bizarre solutions we find to the problem. Sophie Thatcher from last year's Heretic plays a lifelike companion bot that's programmed to kill by her partner so that he can rob a Russian dirtbag and blame her faulty programming. It all goes violently haywire, and much like a sex bot, if you don't think too hard, you can have a pretty good time with it. But for the true incels, the real hopeless cases, the recessed-jawed, micro-penised, flabby, man-tittied losers, we have Fuck My Son from director Todd Rohal. I don't think I've ever had a more disorienting theater experience. This movie felt ungraspable. It's constantly and openly at war with itself. There's a kind of gross-out movie that's been going around, Frankie Frico, Deathstalker, or Toxic Avenger, none of which I've seen, that seem rooted in member-bearing nostalgia for gorehounds. They may be wild and sick, but they're grounded in the safe Friday night fun of childhood. Fuck My Son is groundless. I had already read the Johnny Ryan comic it was based on, so I knew roughly where it would go, but I had no idea there would be AI in it. I'm agnostic about AI in movies. It's here, people are going to use it. I don't like it, but I have no desire to debate its ethics. It's become a taboo in the world of the arts. For some people, it's like killing the turtle in Cannibal Holocaust, an absolutely unforgivable sin. Fuck My Son seems like the kind of movie that would revel in taboo smashing, but it feels more interested in confounding the audience than shocking it. The opening Pervovision instructional segment used AI very obviously, and for the rest of the film you find yourself wondering, is that AI? What about that? And there's a glaze of disreality spread across the entire film. There are AI advocates that think that there's something to be found in the uncanny valley of generative AI art, or they want to bend it until it breaks. I'm disinterested in those uses. It seems like just a new iteration of glitch art. Fuck My Son, however, found a use for it that disgusted me in a new way. AI on 35mm film. The effect is similar to the way 90s TV or direct-to-video movies would be shot on film but edited on video, a slight format incompatibility that makes you indescribably queasy. Imagine how it must have upset the 35mm fetishists and the practical effects purists. I would add that the Meat Friends segments were total failures. A distracting Adult Swim cute-sturbing Kindertraumba send-up of the VeggieTales, but made out of meat. They looked sort of cool and gross, but it was just weird and seemed only to serve as a way to soften the death of a child rather than truly get at anything meaningful about the strange state of kids' entertainment in the YouTube iPad era. But again, conflicts are all over this to the point where conflicts seem to be used as a kind of style. Kill a kid in a gruesome way, but have her float away to a cute meat heaven. Hype up 35mm and practical effects, but then use AI. Have an X rating, but then have a seeming revulsion towards sex. Have the most recognizable actor under pounds of freak makeup. Even the Pervovision nude blocker gimmick is a deliberate dichotomy. All that experiential stuff aside, this is a funny movie with funny people that has a true dark heart. It's a kidnapping movie like The Sinful Dwarf, They Call Her One-Eye, or Mother's Day, but with a mumblecore cast. George Sample III was great. He looked so familiar as the Barney Fife Kelton the Cop character, but I don't think I've seen him in anything else. I had never seen anything with Tipper Newton either, but she created a character that was unlikable, sympathetic, and pushed past her limits while still being truly funny and pulling off a lot of physical humor as the kidnapped mom. Robert Longstreet as the incel-coated mom is a bizarre presence who's able to be menacing and hilarious. And of course Steve Little as the revolting son Fabian is somehow able to give the character heart. This had me laughing uncomfortably loud in the theater, and I hope to get to see it again one day.
Let's make sure we're on the same page here. You're gonna make my son's penis erect and hard. You're going to put it inside your vagina until he ejaculates fully. This will all be done bareback.
Oh, Jesus.
No rubbers, Missy. He deserves the full, pleasurable experience.
Fuck My Son reminds us of how important family ties are, but there were a handful of other flicks that dealt with fractured families. As a matter of fact, so many movies revolved around single parents and blended families that it would be a chore to list them. Even poor Happy Gilmore had to deal with being a single father. While Sentimental Value, The Phoenician Scheme, and Wake Up Dead Man all had fathers attempting to reconnect with their adult children after years on the wind. The metafictional film Invention from documentarian Courtney Stevens revolves around a woman's attempt to learn about the final years of her recently deceased estranged father. Stevens heavily collaborated with actress Callie Hernandez, who based this character's father on her own father, who'd recently died, even incorporating footage of him on local talk shows and news programs, hawking health and wellness gizmos and pyramid schemes. She attempts to piece together his life by talking to his friends and business associates in loosely scripted interview segments. Eventually, a character begins to take shape around his absence, with only his bizarre homemade invention remaining, and Callie's daughter character undergoes her own transformation in an incredibly patient performance. I'd like to say that Weapons had something to say about grief or family loss, but whatever message it had seemed incomprehensible, lost in pseudo-intellectual dead ends and aimless storytelling. It starts with a Larry Cohen-style hook, but it just can't sustain the idea in the middle. And sure, Aunt Gladys is great. Who doesn't want to see Peggy Gravel played like Phyllis Diller? But by the time it gets to the climax, I'd already lost interest and began to feel the movie grating on me. Tighten it up, Kreger. I always wind up catching one or two big blockbusters with the family every year, and this year my favorite of the bunch was a Minecraft movie. It wrangled those bleak, recurring 2025 themes of loneliness and isolation playfully while pointing towards hopeful solutions. Not only was it one of the most financially successful movies of the year, earning almost $1 billion worldwide, it also had kids screaming along, getting out of their seats and filming themselves reciting viral moments, and it's probably the best time I had in the movie theater all year. It was the most potent reminder that going to the movies is a group experience and it doesn't have to be like church. But top box office hits have always been the same sort of stuff for most of my life. PG-13 to G-rated fantasy with light action and a few laughs, usually based on something. When I was managing a mom-and-pop video store, big hits weren't really our bread and butter. We specialized in having a deep catalog and the ability to highlight indie and oddball stuff. I can say for sure that we would have made more money on one battle after another than the new Mission Impossible or Thunderbolts. But even the indie and art house hits of 2025 have seemed kind of unimpressive or disappointing. I've enjoyed movies from Luca Guadagnino and Celine Song in the past, but their movies After the Hunt and The Materialists, respectively, were among the worst I saw this year. And the films from reliable directors like Wes Anderson, Rian Johnson, Osgood Perkins, or Kelly Reichardt felt missable, even if they were decent. I loved Linklater's Blue Moon, but is it something I'm going to revisit anytime soon? Maybe 2025 for movies is an inflection point that we can't see clearly because it hasn't played out. It's too close to be in focus. Maybe this is the 1988 of the 2020s. If you look at what was popular in 1988, you'd have never known that the independent film boom was right around the corner. What's popular at the time never tells the whole story anyway. So let's pivot to a few of my favorite discoveries, older films that struck a chord in one way or another.
I want it.
You want what?
I want it.
You want what?
I want your cock.
You want my cock?
I want your cock.
You want my cock?
I want your cock.
I've started every year since 2023 with Punuary, a tribute to director Albert Pune, who passed away in November of 2022. His legacy is unfairly tainted by the notorious bomb Captain America from 1990, a compromised movie whose budget was slashed before filming began as it became wrapped up with the dissolution of Canon Films. But let's face it, Albert was a guy who often let his ambitious visions run away with him, so it's impossible to say if he could have delivered a hit even with the budget he needed. There are many pathways to take when examining Pune's career. He made sci-fi action classics like Cyborg and Nemesis, cult oddities like Radioactive Dreams and Vicious Lips, as well as a number of Hong Kong-style post-Tarantino neo-noirs. This year I watched 4 of the 5 movies he made with Ice-T. In the late 1990s, Pune went to Slovakia to make an anthology gangster movie, but instead of 3 shorts weaved together, he made 3 full movies: Urban Menace, Corrupt, and Wrecking Crew. None of these are watchable, but I wish he'd focused on making Corrupt better. The actors do a pretty good job in the parts that have a script, and they all deserve a better movie than they got. Ice-T is creepy as the title villain, and they use one of his creepiest songs, Always Wanted to Be a Hoe, twice.
I think I'll call you Apple because your ass is kind of fat. How old are you?
16.
Well, that's just right. But you're 18 if anybody asks tonight. I'ma teach you how to get this long paper right. Catch a trick, suck his dick, break his ass polite. Cause I love you, that's all you really need to know. I'm about to miss my hair appointment, girl, I got to go. She said,
I always wanted to be a hoe. I always wanted to be a hoe.
yeah.
Urban Menace looked pretty bad, but I had my hopes up for just a moment when Ice-T gave a content warning at the beginning like Blood Feast. But that hope didn't last long. It's mainly a bunch of dudes running around in an abandoned warehouse, but at one point Fat Joe says, "Let's go get that McDonald's 2-for-1 to Big Pun." Then a little later, Big Pun tells TJ Snow that he's going to kill his 400-pound lap dancing mama. Plus, one dude has a shaved head except for one dookie braid right in the back like a genie. Snoop Dogg is in Bones mode as an avenging ghost preacher that gruesomely murders gangsters, but no one's taking this seriously and the final product has obvious mistakes and line flubs. Crazy Six would be one of the better films of his Ice-T in Slovakia period. It even has an all-star cast, at least by his standards. Along with Ice-T, there's Rob Lowe, Mario Van Peebles, and Burt Reynolds. It's stylish in a way that doesn't work for me, but somehow it's greater than the sum of its negatives. There's a lot of the corny pop culture dialogue that was everywhere after Pulp Fiction, talking about Kool-Aid flavors and Neil Diamond and shit like that. This was also an era obsessed with junkies, but in this one they're on crack instead of heroin, and in one scene Ice-T has a crack pipe ducked to someone's face. There's a nightclub singer that's shot like Isabella Rossellini from Blue Velvet, but the songs suck, and instead of a cool jazz combo, she's playing a Casio keyboard. But that's not the only embarrassing detail. You might remember that scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when the TV director wants Rick Dalton to have a big droopy mustache. That's exactly what they do to Rob Lowe in this. Even the goons look stupid, mean mugging with long black coats and black fedoras. Mario Van Peebles with a French accent and a little dog is terrific, though. Where this comes together for me is the weird style that emerges as a necessity of the main stars not being on set with one another. Pune uses lighting and sound to tie everyone together, and the dialogue is shown in tight close-ups even when the actors actually are on set with each other. Another 3-star Puner. Mean Guns is the best of the Ice-T Albert Pune collaborations and is a good example of why the director has his defenders. It might not be the first place to point someone who needs to be steered away from the Marvel fanboy misconception that Pune is an MST3K tier hack, but it's nothing to be ashamed of. Mean Guns is a weird spin on the most dangerous game. The tagline reads 100 assassins, 1,000 weapons, $10 million. Only one can survive. It came out years before Battle Royale or the Hunger Games, but they all involved the players killing one another as opposed to a wealthy hunting party a la Surviving the Game, also starring Ice-T. The criminals are stuffed into a prison that's just about to be opened for its first day, and they're locked in until the deadly game of survival reaches its end. There are times where this feels like it could have been a Hong Kong gun opera, but it never gets quite that visceral, despite dozens of on-screen kills. At the top of the large but mainly obscure cast is Christopher Lambert, aka Christopher Lambert, who was on the A-list of direct-to-video actors at the time, having just appeared in Mortal Kombat 2 years earlier. This wasn't his first movie with Pune. The two had filmed in Slovakia for Adrenaline, Fear the Rush in 1996. Mean Guns is well suited to the Highlander star as he's allowed to substitute swords for baseball bats. Wearing a bowler hat and gold grills, Ice-T gives one of his best non-Law and Order performances other than the body count institutionalized video. I made an intentional effort this year to lighten up. More comedies in the mix. On Letterboxd, I coordinated the Sizzlin' Summer of Side Splitters Challenge. Each week of the summer involved a different category. Participants were asked to watch a movie from different lists and filmographies. Most of the categories were broad enough that you might not even have to watch that many comedies. In theory, you could have watched Come and See, Midnight Express, This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse, and a bunch of other downers. But the point of the challenge was to try to get some laughs in your life. For Saturday Night Live week, I found an online copy of the barely seen 1984 film Nothing Lasts Forever, which is probably my favorite discovery of the year.
Even though I've come from far away, I feel as if we've known each other and loved each other forever. And if this is a dream, then I hope I never wake up, because it's the sweetest dream I've ever had.
Nothing Lasts Forever is most famous for not being released. It's proto-indie quirk that has Gilliam-ish smarty-pants surrealism and the sweetness of the Coen brothers, thanks in part to star Zach Galligan. It's mainly black and white and goofs on New York City downtown artists. The main character is named Beckett, and it has a semicircular storyline, but it's never a drag, and even a knucklehead like myself can follow it. The cast features Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray, as well as beloved character actors and TV stars like Mort Saul, Calvert DeForest, and Imogene Coca. Director Tom Schiller had a long writing career on Saturday Night Live, but never made another feature. Still, it feels like part of a larger body of work or an early movie from a subsequently famous director. Think of something along the lines of John Sayles' Brother from Another Planet or Jonathan Demme's Something Wild. I don't really think a movie this strange and sensitive would have been a hit, but it's a shame to have been a casualty of corporate mergers and acquisitions. 2025 was my Chuck Vincent year. I'd loved his fantastic Blue Summer and the USA Up All Night Essential Hollywood Hot Tubs, but I'd never paid attention to him until Matt from the Movie Melt podcast started raving about him on their Slammer Girls episode. Then the next year, Lance from Unsung Horrors did the same thing for their Deranged episode. It may seem like a distant connection, but in February I rewatched Hollywood Hot Tubs and I re-listened to the Earl and Jensen prank calls, and one of their characters, the party doctor, reminded me of Vincent's Young Nurses in Love, where a Soviet spy tries to smuggle Albert Einstein's sperm back to Mother Russia. In addition to his dozens of adult films, no one made more films that appeared on USA Up All Night than Chuck Vincent. Somehow, his movies become incredibly watchable once you recognize his obsessions, rhythms, and themes. He worked quickly and efficiently, and he seemed to have a tight control over his productions. He wasn't going to work with people that didn't match his talent and work ethic. The actors had to know their lines, hit their marks, and create their own characterizations. Vincent wasn't going to waste time chit-chatting with an actor about the meaning of his scripts. It also helped if his actors were non-union, so it's no surprise that his troupe was a mix of New York City porno performers like Veronica Hart, Scott Baker, and Samantha Fox. He was a surprisingly ambitious filmmaker, not the I'm gonna film a movie on the top of a volcano kind of ambitious, more like I'm gonna cast a bunch of nobodies and porn stars in a complicated story with deliberately conflicting perspectives and a ton of characters, and it's gonna be set mainly in one apartment kind of ambitious. Most low-budget filmmakers couldn't keep that kind of movie on the rails. In Sex Appeal from 1986, the main character is a detestable nerd named Tony Cannelloni who sets up a bachelor pad away from his overbearing mother just so he can dip his pickle without the old bag walking in on him. Despite the new locale and the help of a get-laid-quick book, he's still a loser. All the while, his neighbor is listening in and incorrectly assuming Tony's a true poonslayer, writing a series of articles about this New Jersey Casanova. Cleo Leo is a gender-swap reincarnation story. Crass businessman and misogynist Leo, played by Scott Baker, is shot on the street and falls into the Hudson River. And somehow when he swims to shore, he's been transformed into the gorgeous Veronica Hart. This kind of story had been done before, but Blake Edwards made the similar switch a year or two after Cleo Leo, and Vincent apparently tried to sue even though Switch was based on a novel from the 50s that had already been adapted into a movie in the 60s. Plus, Vincent would have probably known about Roberta Findlay's Angel on Fire from 1974, since he worked with much of the cast. But originality isn't why anyone's watching Cleo Leo. It's an over-the-top comedy that's empathetic at its core and has an undertone of strange sadness and longing running throughout. Gender and misogyny are treated more fluidly than in Findlay or Blake's movies, perhaps because Vincent was a gay man. There's lots of laughs, hot naked ladies, and the propulsive plot is commercial break ready to fit onto USA Up All Night.
Hey! Hey, baby! Hey, what are you doing for the rest of your life? Want to sit on my face?
I'm dead.
Dyke.
Pig.
Slut.
Oh, make up your mind. Am I a dyke or a slut?
I have it. You're a slutty dyke.
Oh, that's very clever.
Yeah, you're also a castrator.
A castrator?
Yeah.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well then, let's see if you can function without any balls.
Come on, bitch. Who you trying to fool with that toy gun? Oh, fuck! No.
Chuck Vincent's one of those guys like Jess Franco, where the more you see, the more you see. And Deranged from 1987 is the pure shit. Fassbender wanted to build a house with his movies, but Chuck wanted to furnish an apartment. I love seeing how he rearranges the same pieces of furniture from one movie to the next, but in this the walls are really closing in. We're trapped along with Veronica Hart once more in fevered, looping trauma memories as she froths, hallucinates, and falls apart. Vincent's fascination with the mechanics of love and relationships made him the greatest director of romantic comedy exploitation films, but it also meant he understood the madness that comes from betrayal of trust. Vincent certainly deserves further examination on the podcast, and he's a figure I'll certainly return to. But after watching over 20 of his movies this year, I'm grateful to have discovered the pleasures of his filmography. Truthfully, I tried too many Letterboxd challenges in 2025. In June, I watched 30 movies for Junesploitation, and that's on top of the sizzling Summer of Side Splitters challenge. Then, in October, I participated in the 6th annual Horror Gives Back Challenge, organized by my friends Lance and Erica at the Unsung Horrors podcast. The idea is that they recommend 31 categories like Lena Romay or Haunted House, and for every movie you watch during the month, you donate a set dollar amount to charity. I also tried to participate in the Cult Movie Challenge, which happens throughout the year, but I gave up after watching the lifeless, low-budget serial killer stinker, Cyrus, Mind of a Serial Killer, for Lance Henriksen Week. What was I doing to myself? Maybe it wasn't my best year for movie viewing, but I hope 2026 is filled with more obscurities like Death Nurse 1 and 2 or Psycho Ape. My goal for the year is to rewatch some of my old favorites and fill in some filmography gaps from actors or directors I love. Will this be the year that I finally watch Todd Sheets' Violent New Breed with Rudy Ray Moore? Bitch, it might be.